Okay, so we're diving into this paper today. AI Thinking, a framework for rethinking artificial intelligence in practice. It seems like it's really geared towards, well, folks like our listeners, leaders and administrators and managers who are finding AI more and more part of their work.
Yeah, and the author really seems to be pushing for like a real shift in how we think about AI. It's not just about tech itself. It's like we need a whole new set of skills, almost a new mindset, if you will, to really use it effectively.
They're calling it AI Thinking.
Right, exactly.
So it's less about being like a tech whiz and more about just making smart decisions about AI.
Yeah, that's it. The paper argues that, just throwing AI at every problem isn't the answer. We need like a framework, a shared language, to really bridge the gaps between how different fields view AI and how they're actually using it.
That makes sense, yeah. Like an engineer might be focused on, the nuts and bolts of an algorithm, whereas a manager is more concerned with how AI can help their team's workflow.
Right, exactly. And without that shared understanding, things can get lost in translation, leading to projects that just completely miss the mark, or even worse, have unintended negative consequences.
Okay, so how does this AI thinking framework try to address that?
Well, the paper, it starts by looking at the existing literature on AI adoption and use. And it really highlights how so much of the focus has been on just the technical side of AI, like developing new algorithms or building more powerful hardware.
So the focus has been more on the what of AI instead of like the how and why of actually using it.
Yeah, exactly. And this has created a kind of knowledge gap, I guess you could say, when it comes to actually integrating AI into, real world processes and systems.
So this framework is trying to fill that gap by giving people a way to think about AI strategically, even if they're not, programmers or data scientists.
Yeah, that's the idea. The author is saying we need to move beyond just understanding the technical parts of AI and develop a deeper understanding of its potential applications. And also, of course, the limitations and even the implications, which can be, kind of scary.
So it's like AI thinking is sort of like becoming AI literate, but with a focus on practical application and decision making.
Yeah, precisely. And to make this more concrete, the author proposes 5 core competencies that kind of make up this framework.
Okay, I'm definitely intrigued. Let's hear it. What are those competencies?
All right, so the first one is all about identifying the specific needs that you're actually trying to address with AI. It's about being strategic and intentional rather than just chasing, whatever the latest trend is.
So before you even start thinking about algorithms or data, you need to ask yourself, what problem am I actually trying to solve?
Exactly. It's about having a purpose, a clear purpose, and understanding where AI can actually add value to what you're doing.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like, you wouldn't just buy a hammer if you didn't know what you were trying to build, right? You need a plan.
Right, and that actually leads perfectly into the second competency, which builds on that idea of, being goal-oriented. It's about formulating the problem in a way that AI can address.
So like getting really specific about what you want the AI to do and how you're going to measure its success.
Exactly. Defining the problem, figuring out what outputs you need from the system, and even considering how the system's going to learn, how it will adapt over time.
It's almost like setting clear expectations for a new employee. You got to tell them what their role is and how their performance is going to be evaluated.
And with AI, having that definition up front is crucial. And that brings us to the third competency, which is all about choosing the right tools and technologies for the job.
This is where things can get overwhelming, right? There are so many different AI technologies out there. How do you know which one is the best fit?
Oh, absolutely. It can be daunting. But this competency emphasizes the importance of matching the tool to the task at hand. It's about understanding the strengths and limitations of the different technologies out there, and then selecting the one that's best suited for your specific needs and your resources, of course.
So don't just assume that, the newest or the most complex AI tool is always going to be the best option.
Sometimes a simpler approach might be much more effective and efficient. It's about finding that balance between complexity and practicality.
And I'd imagine data plays a huge role in all of this too, which I guess brings us to that fourth competency.
Absolutely. Data is the fuel for AI, and this competency stresses how important it is to carefully assess and select your data sources.
So it's not just about having a lot of data, it's about having the right kind of data.
Precisely. You need to consider the representativeness of your data, meaning does it really reflect the population or phenomenon you're trying to model?
So for example, if you're building an AI system to, predict customer behavior, you would want to make sure your data includes a diverse range of customers, not just a small subset.
Exactly. And you also need to think about the informativeness of your data, meaning does it actually contain signals relevant to the task at hand?
It's like you wouldn't use a cookbook to try to fix your car, right? The information just isn't relevant.
Exactly. And finally, you need to consider the reliability of your data, meaning how accurate and trustworthy is it?
Because I imagine bad data leads to bad results, even with the best AI algorithms.
Oh, absolutely. So this fourth competency really highlights how critical that data selection process is.
Okay, so we've covered four. What's that fifth and final competency?
Well, the fifth one is about situating AI use in context. It's about considering the broader implications of AI, both the good and the bad, and making sure it's being used responsibly and ethically.
So it's not just about the technical side of AI, but also understanding its impact on, people, organizations, society as a whole.
Exactly. This competency really pushes the importance of stakeholder engagement, transparency, and accountability when it comes to developing and using AI.
So thinking about the why behind the AI use, not just the how.
Precisely. And recognizing that AI isn't a neutral tool, it can be used for good or for bad, and it's up to us to make sure it aligns with our values and our goals.
This is really making me think about all the ways that we could be using AI, more effectively. But it also highlights the potential pitfalls if we're not careful.
Yeah, I think that's exactly why this framework is so valuable. It gives us like a way to really think through those pitfalls and hopefully mitigate them before they become actual problems.
So it's kind of like a risk management tool for AI, but also a way to unlock its full potential, maybe.
I think that's a great way to put it. And to really illustrate how this framework can be applied, in the real world, the paper actually gives this really compelling case study.
Oh, I love a good case study. Tell me more.
It focuses on the use of AI in healthcare, specifically for prioritizing patients for organ transplants.
Wow, that's a pretty high stakes situation. You definitely want to make sure AI is being used responsibly there.
Absolutely. And the case study really highlights how an AI system that's designed, without AI thinking could end up having some pretty serious unintended consequences.
Okay, walk me through what kind of problems could come up.
So imagine an AI system that uses like a really complex algorithm to analyze all of a patient's data, and then it generates, a single score for each potential transplant recipient. The idea is to use that score to create a ranked list, which in theory, would make the whole prioritization process much more efficient.
Okay, yeah, I can see how that would make things easier, but I can also already see where this might go wrong.
Right, exactly. The problem is the data that's used to train this AI system, it could contain hidden biases. For example, if most of the data came from, let's say, urban hospitals, it might not accurately reflect the needs of patients in more rural areas.
So the AI system might end up prioritizing urban patients over rural ones just because of the data it was trained on.
Yeah, exactly. And this bias could even be further amplified if the data, kind of reflects those existing disparities in access to healthcare in the first place. And the AI system, because it's blind to these nuances, it could end up perpetuating and even worsening those inequalities.
That's a scary thought. And I imagine it would be pretty hard to even detect this kind of bias without, a framework like AI thinking.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Without carefully considering the data and the context that the AI system is being used in, these biases can easily go unnoticed, and then they have real-world consequences.
Okay, so let's say we do apply AI thinking to this same scenario. How would that change things?
Well, for one thing, instead of just shooting for a single overall score, the team would really break down that whole decision-making process. They'd break it down into smaller steps, looking at where AI could be most effective. They'd also recognize that, clinical judgment is still vital. It's not about replacing human expertise. It's about supporting it.
So it's more of a collaboration than just straight up automation.
Exactly. They might also design the AI system to provide more transparency, maybe by generating multiple scores that represent different aspects of a patient's health, rather than just one kind of opaque score.
So instead of a black box, you get more insight into how the AI is actually making its recommendations.
Right. And that would allow clinicians to really understand, the AI's reasoning and then make a more informed decision.
Okay, that makes sense. What about the data itself? How would AI thinking help address those potential biases we were talking about?
Well, the team would understand that relying on data from just one source could perpetuate those inequalities, right? So they would actively seek out other data sources that are more representative of the diverse population that they're serving.
They'd be expanding the data set to be more inclusive.
Exactly. And they'd also be much more careful about the actual AI methods they use, choosing techniques that are less likely to amplify those biases in the first place.
So being intentional about the data and the algorithms.
Yes. And it's also about getting stakeholders involved in the whole process, the patients, clinicians, even ethicists. This makes sure that the AI system is not only technically sound, but also, aligns with the values and goals of the community that it's supposed to be serving.
It's not just about building a better AI system, it's about building a better system overall.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect way to put it. AI thinking is about using AI to try to create a system that's more equitable, more just, more efficient for everyone.
I think this case study is really powerful. It shows how AI thinking can have a tangible impact in a really complex and sensitive area like healthcare.
It does, and it also highlights how important it is to consider, those broader implications of AI, which is actually something that the paper discusses in its conclusion about AI thinking and the bigger picture, as they call it.
Okay, I'm curious to hear more about that. How does AI thinking fit into the whole AI landscape?
Well, the paper connects AI thinking to this whole discussion around AI literacy, which is the idea of equipping people with the knowledge and skills to understand and engage with AI effectively.
So it's not just focusing on the technical experts. It's about making sure that everyone can participate in this conversation about AI.
Yeah, exactly. And AI thinking can actually play a really key role in this by, providing this practical framework for understanding and applying AI in, real-world settings.
But even if you're not a data scientist, you can still develop the skills to think critically about AI and all of its implications.
Exactly. AI thinking can help people from all walks of life become, more informed and more discerning consumers and users of AI.
That's so important, yeah. It
Right.
feels like the more people understand AI, the better equipped we'll all be as a society to harness its potential and also, to avoid those risks.
Right. And the paper also connects AI thinking to the idea of being AI informed rather than AI driven, which is an interesting distinction.
What's the difference?
Well, when we say AI driven, it often implies that the technology itself is kind of in the driver's seat, Like we're just following wherever AI takes us.
So we're passively letting AI make our choices and decisions for us.
Yeah, basically. And that can be a dangerous path, especially when we haven't really thought through all the potential consequences.
Okay, so what does it mean to be AI informed then?
Being AI informed means that we're being proactive and intentional about how we use AI. It means using our own intelligence, our values, our goals, to guide the development and the deployment of these AI systems.
So instead of letting AI lead the way, we're using it as a tool to achieve our own objectives.
Exactly. We're using our own knowledge and judgment to shape the AI landscape rather than just letting it shape us. And AI thinking, it gives us a framework to do that effectively.
This all ties back to that idea of becoming the drivers of AI, right? We're taking control, we're steering AI towards hopefully more ethical and beneficial future.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. AI thinking really empowers us to be active participants in this whole AI revolution, not just passive bystanders.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation. It really feels like AI thinking is a crucial step in moving beyond all the hype and all the fear, all the stuff that surrounds AI, and moving towards a more, thoughtful and responsible approach.
I completely agree. And the paper makes it very clear that AI thinking isn't just for the tech experts, it's for everyone.
Absolutely. Whether you're a leader, a manager, or just someone who's curious about what the future holds, developing AI thinking skills can help you navigate this really complex and rapidly evolving world.
Yeah, it's about becoming a more informed citizen, if you will, of this AI age we're entering and using your knowledge to try to make a positive difference.
This has been a really fascinating deep dive. I feel like I have a much better understanding of how to approach AI in a way that's both strategic and responsible.
I'm glad to hear that. It really is about shifting our perspective,
Yeah.
from seeing AI as something that's happening to us to something that we can actually shape and direct.
And that's where this AI thinking framework comes in, right? It gives us the tools to do that.
Exactly. And the paper concludes by emphasizing that AI thinking is an ongoing process. It's not like a one-time fix.
So it's not like you learn these 5 competencies and then you're good to go.
Yeah.
It's more about developing a certain mindset of continuous learning when it comes to AI.
The AI landscape is constantly changing, so our thinking about AI needs to change too. Keep up with it.
So it's about embracing that sense of curiosity and being willing to challenge our assumptions about AI, even our own assumptions.
Precisely. And the paper argues that this kind of critical thinking is, it's essential if we want to make sure that AI is being used in a way that benefits all of humanity.
So what does this all mean for our listener, the one who's been with us on this deep dive?
It means that no matter what your role is or your level of technical expertise, you can play a part in shaping the future of AI. You can start by asking yourself those key questions. What are my goals? What problems am I trying to solve? How can AI help me do that? And what are the potential downsides?
It's about taking ownership of the AI conversation,
Hmm.
not just leaving it to the engineers and the data scientists.
Exactly. And it's about recognizing that AI isn't just like a technical issue, it's a human issue. It's about how we choose to use this powerful technology.
I think it's a perfect note to end on. Use AI thinking to become the driver, not the passenger, in your AI journey. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.